Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positive vibes here on the show, and with me right now, I've got a very special guest. He has competed for numerous independent wrestling promotions all across the country, has been featured on WWE and TNA television, as well as worked for the NWA as well. Pleased to welcome the one and only Shawn Shultz. Welcome, Shawn, to Wrestling with Heart.
Yeah, I appreciate it so much. Thanks for having me, Stanley. I really appreciate this. And I love what you're doing, man. I think it's a really cool, kind of, different angle to take with the wrestling personalities. I think that's really awesome.
I appreciate that very much. So talk to me about your childhood and where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up in a little town outside of Knoxville, Tennessee, a little town called Oak Ridge. It's got a little bit of notoriety. That's where the Manhattan Project was. The atomic bomb was built there, all that. So a lot of people kind of know it for that. And also, don't drink the water when you go there. You hear that a lot too. But no, really great. Like my mom and dad are just the best people, salt of the earth people. My mom is a saint. You would you would find it very hard to find somebody more kind and genuinely good inside than my mother. My dad is a man's man, man of very few words. But I'm proud to say that, especially the older I get, I very much appreciate and respect the man that my father is. Growing up, I actually never, ever, ever saw my father disrespect my mother in our home. That was just something that you never saw. And my dad's just still to this day, man, of very few words. They're both still very healthy and doing a lot, but just the best people. Growing up, pro wrestling was my life from as early as I can remember. Like it was all I wanted to do. I was very much, sucked in by the personalities and the lights and the glitz and the glamour and the larger than life superheroes and villains that I saw. And from 5 years old on, that's all I wanted to do.
And you're in a perfect part of town to really get invested in it because Tennessee is just such a hotbed for professional wrestling. Of course, you got your WWEs and your NWAs and all the major national companies, but you've got your Goulas's and your Jarrett's and Kazana
Lawler.
Promotions as well, Lawler.
Yes.
And so you're watching these shows, you're glued in, mesmerized by these people. What was it about pro wrestling that just made you go, man, I love this. I want to find a way to get involved with it.
I was a very quiet and shy and very insecure. And honestly, looking back on it, I probably had a lot of undiagnosed depression things going on, honestly. And I've grown out of those. So I don't make light of it, but I say it with a smile on my face now that I can look back. And so for me, it was to live vicariously. All these things that I didn't think I was capable of, seeing these, larger than life personalities. I remember the first match I saw. So growing up, like I have some family out in Nashville, and I was in East Tennessee. My cousins from Nashville came down, and I remember hearing them talk about how wrestling was fake, but they thought this guy was cute or that guy was cute, but it's fake stuff. And so I didn't know much about it. And then I remember I was probably 5, 6 years old, something like that. My dad was watching wrestling on TV, and I remember just walking up and saying, is this fake? And again, my dad being a man of very few words, just said, "Sit down and watch it, boy." And so I did. I sat down and watched it, and it was Hulk Hogan and Earthquake. And I remember just, Earthquake was beating him down, and then the Hulk up came, and I remember just going, "What is this? Who is this guy?" And then I can remember the finish of the match, and I remember right then I looked at my dad and said, "I want to do that." And he said, "Yeah." That's about the biggest reaction as you get from him. But it was it, man. I was sucked in growing up. I was a huge Mr. Perfect fan to the point that I actually had a notebook about this big of. I went looking for all of his matches that I could find. Of course, the internet wasn't a thing then, so I went to all the magazines and anything I could find, and I actually had his win-loss record. in a notebook. That's how big of a Mr. Perfect fan I was. And as I got older, the Shawn Michaels and honestly, going into my teen years, Dean Malenko and a guy I got to be very, very close friends with, Jerry Lynn, were the guys that I watched grow, in my teenage years, and mainly because at that point, like I kind of started getting hip to how it worked, and I just studied it, and I was just I'm very much a dive head first kind of person, and I was so just enthralled with all of it, and I remember um, seeing Jerry Lynn and the way he hit the ropes and the way he locked up and all those things. And I was like, man, that guy, he knows what he's doing. I also realized he wasn't a huge guy, and I'm not a big guy by any means. And I already wasn't a big guy as my teenage years. And I was just thinking, man, this guy, he's perfected the basics, and that's why his size doesn't negatively affect him. So I just really, really started watching him, Dean Malenko, and those kind of guys. And of course, growing up, man, like WWE was all I really saw, except when then finally Smoky Mountain came on in East Tennessee there. And I remember actually the first show I ever went to was a WWE Smoky Mountain combined show when Shawn Michaels wrestled Buddy Landel. And I remember going there. That's why I went. Shawn Michaels, Buddy Landel. But when I left, I was talking about two guys that actually became really close friends of mine. Flash Flanagan and Chris Michael wrestled the Headbangers on that same show in Civic Coliseum in Knoxville. And I remember leaving talking about them, and it was just like, because they were doing springboards, and I'd never seen a springboard to that point. They're man, just anybody and anything I could just suck in as much as I could get. I was taking it all in.
And the cool thing about, growing up in the 80s and how it evolved over time was that it was the larger than life, characters like the big, 300-pound plus, figures that you see, come out.
Yeah. Big
And
John
then
Studd, Andre, all those brothers.
I know. And then as you get into like the early 90s, you start seeing a lot of the technical stuff, the Bret Harts, the Shawn Michaels, the Kurt Hennings, and eventually you get into, Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit and all these people, that come later. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
It's almost like your tastes start changing and it's like it grows up with you in a sense.
Right. Yeah. It was just, part of the evolution of the business. And I guess it, evolutionized as fans too. Like I just said, like all these guys were so huge, like you just said, it was just, it almost seemed too big to be possible until you started seeing the Bret Harts and the Shawn Michaels. And it was like, oh, these are dudes, and they're just really talented dudes doing this, and it's like, then it was kind of like, this is something that I could do maybe.
At what age did you go, I want to learn how to do this. I want to train and I want to start getting involved.
I meant it when I said it at 5. Like I meant it. But I think honestly, the times that I really knew for sure that that's what I was going to do, bringing in my dad up again. In the house I grew up in, my dad had his recliner. That was his seat. And then there was another chair right here. And I was sitting here and I was watching WrestleMania 12, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels. And I was like on the edge of my seat. And I remember my dad like telling me to scoot back a couple times, because I was like blocking the screen because he was kind of watching, but not really. But who ended up becoming my daughter's mother. We were just friends in school, and she had called the house because again, didn't have cell phones and stuff back then, right? So she called the landline, and my mom answered, and she was like, my shoot name is Tommy Phillips, and my mom goes, "Hey Tom, Candace is on the phone for you," and I said, "Tell her I'll call her back." And my dad goes, "You got a girl calling you, and you'd rather watch this." And I remember at that moment, I looked at him and said, "This is what I'm going to do." And it was like when I said it, at the same time, like I felt it. And that was when, like I say, that's when I said it, but like I meant it at 5 too. But that's when I knew I'm going to do this for sure.
So you start looking up schools, you start figuring out, okay, I'm going to train, I want to become a wrestler. Talk to me about your training experiences because when I've had guests on the show, they talk about, doing the drills and putting the reps in. It is no joke. It really is.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, like for me, like so when I first started looking around, growing up in East Tennessee again, I had already kind of heard some, scuttlebutt about Mr. Fuji having a school in Knoxville there. So that's kind of like the only place I knew, you know. So I started working right when I first turned. I might have still been 15. I started working at Burger King. Yeah, I was 15 because I didn't have a car yet, because I could walk. It was only about a block away from my mom and dad's, and I was going to do that to save up money to go to wrestling school. That was the plan. And Fuji, I had heard, I'd done a little bit of research and found out that Fuji, I think, was charging $2,750 to train. So I told my mom, I was like, I'm going to save up money and do this. I'm going to get a car. So I bought a $700 car for my uncle so I could get to wrestling training in Knoxville. And I started working. I saved up $3,500. And when I saved up that much, my mom knew I was for real. So she came to me and she said, hey, Tom, I know this lady who knows a wrestler. And you know her. She works with me. Her name is Karen. She's like, I would like for you to maybe stop by and speak to Karen real fast about this guy that she knows. So I said, yeah, for sure. And I was curious, but at the same time, I also like was humoring my mom. You know what I mean? And so like I just went to talk to her, and she was like, "Hey, I know this guy named Jason. He actually lives in Oak Ridge. He works in Oak Ridge too. He's a fireman, but he does wrestling. It's probably a good idea if you go talk to him." So again, I was just kind of humoring him, thinking it was just going to be, just some guy in overalls, a regular independent, Tennessee wrestler. So I go to the fire hall there in Oak Ridge, and I knock on the door, and this monster of a man opens the door. He's like 6'4", 6'5", 230 something pounds, curly blonde hair, blue eyes, a real handsome guy. And I was like, oh man, holy cow. And he's like, come on in, buddy. And he was on crutches, and because he had just recently broke his leg. And we sat down and talked. And the first time we talked for 4 hours. And I just told him, this is all I want to do, man. This is all I think about. This is all I talk about. Like, this is everything I want to do in my life. And he started talking to me, and he was like, well, I heard through the grapevine after we talked for a few hours. He said that Fuji's not been showing up for classes. I don't know if there's some things going on, but I've heard the school's not going to last a whole lot longer. Probably not a good idea for you to go spend your money there and then get it wasted. Here's a number for Scott Wilcox. Scott trained me. Give him a call, see what you think, maybe go over there. So I gave Scott a call, and he talked to me for a few, and so he agreed. I just go ahead and go there. It's a little bit cheaper, but he told me straight up on the phone that day. He was like, I'm going to show you the basics, man. After that, in my opinion, it's up to you. I'll show you the basics. So my training was on a gymnasium floor, so that was hard, taking bumps on that, but it wasn't. Scott didn't put me through this really crazy intense cardio. He had me doing some working out with him 3 days a week, and we would train 5 days a week. And I just trained for 3 months. And then he took me to a show in Maynardville, Tennessee, a little tiny town. It's got one red light in it. Took me there. And what he told me was, hey, take your gear. Always take your gear. Just be prepared. But he's like, we're just going to go there. I want you to watch and learn what not to do, because these guys aren't really, trained and stuff. So it's like, okay. So I went there, and the guy named Jesse Ellis was the guy running the show. Jesse does belts and that kind of stuff now. And Jesse came up to me, introduced himself, and he was like, hey, kid, you're on first. It's like, what? And I look over at Scott. I'm like, I'm on first? And the funny story is, so like, my name is Tommy Phillips. And when I called Scott, I was really nervous, and I was young. I was 17. So I probably mumbled a lot on the phone. And I still kind of mumble, but I mumbled a lot on the phone probably. And he called me Tony for like 3 weeks before I had the guts to correct him, because wrestling was just such a big deal to me. So finally I was like, hey, my name's Tommy. It's not Tony. And he had asked me a few times if I knew this family that he knew. And I always was like, no, I don't know those people. I'm sorry, man. So after I told him my name was Tommy, not Tony, he goes, but your last name is Shultz, right? I was like, no. And he's like, well, it is now. And I was like, okay. So we got to the show. Jesse was like, you're on first. And he's like, what's your name? I just looked at Scott, and I was like, what's my name? And he was like, yeah, Schultz for sure. And I was like, okay, what else? And he was like, and Jesse was like, Shawn sounds good with it. And I was like, okay. So that's how the name came about. I went out there and wrestled a guy named Brian Nelson, who I trained with a little while. So I kind of knew him and was familiar. And then not real long after that, I can't remember the exact time frame, but I did a show, and I'm pretty confident it was in Lake City or La Follette, Tennessee, still around that East Tennessee area. And I met Tracy Smothers. And Tracy was the first guy that I had like seen on TV that I met in person. So I was sitting in my car. I got there and I saw him get out of his car and he was walking in. I was just like, oh my God, that's Freddie Joe Floyd, and and so I went over to him. I was like, Mr. Smothers, it's such a pleasure to meet you. I'm wrestling tonight. Would you mind to watch my match? And his response was, yeah, kid, I watch all the matches. That's what I do. I watch all the matches. And I was like, okay, awesome. So I was on first and I come in the back and he's actually at the curtain watching. He was actually watching. And I just remember even at that time, I was just like, wow, that guy's actually watching. So he did his match. Then he came up to me and was like, hey, Shawn, what do you do? And I was like, I thought he was talking about wrestling, right? So I'm like, just the basics, hip toss, arm drag. He's like, no, for money. What do you do? What do you do for money? What's your job? And I was like, oh, I just work at a grocery store. He's like, cool. Where do you live? And I was like, oh, about 20 minutes from here. No. I mean, like, do you live alone? Do you have a girlfriend? Live with your parents? What do you do? And I was like, oh, I live with my parents. And he's like, it's only 20 minutes? And I was like, yeah. So he was like, can you take a week off from work? Probably. The manager lady kind of had a crush on me at the time. So I was like, I probably couldn't get away with it, And so I call her and I'm like, hey, can I take a week off? I have this opportunity in wrestling. And she was like, yeah, that's fine. I didn't come home for 2 months. And like Tracy just took me on the road. So I claim Tracy as who trained me because he did. He like, I knew the basics. I knew how to hit the ropes. I knew how to lock up. I knew how to take a bump. That's really about all I did. And Tracy taught me how to be a wrestler at that point. And like really now being in my 40s and looking back, what he really did was he taught me a lot about how to be a man. And taught me a whole lot about life and how to give. And one thing that Tracy taught me, and it's funny, man, because like I don't know if you ever had the honor of meeting Tracy or not, Stanley, but like there's about 500 dudes out there right now that have the exact same story that I told you. Because he did that for everybody that he saw loved it. We were his family. And he just did that for so many people, man. And like when I say I didn't come home for 2 months, I left with nothing. He paid for all my pictures. He paid for all the gas. He paid for all the food. He got me on all the shows. He did all that just simply because he saw a kid. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. He saw a kid that wanted it. And he did that. And then, like I said, man, he did that for hundreds of other people out there. I give you a list right now, for anybody that he met that wanted it. He just grabbed them up and took them because we were his family. And man, like I said, looking back, he taught me a lot about wrestling, but what he really taught me a lot about was life.
Yeah, he had a real passion for wrestling. I actually got to see him at a couple shows. Definitely really wanted to grow the industry, take people under his wing, as you said, really, teach them lessons, give them that guidance to be able to make it in the industry. And so, getting to work with Tracy, what were some of the things that he had taught you? Any lessons, whether it was in wrestling or outside of wrestling, that you still apply to today outside of the business?
Number one that always comes to mind, and he said this over and over and over and over. He said, if you see anybody behind you, I don't want you to ever kick dirt going. I want you to reach back and grab them and take them with you. And that's just what he did. And, he always tell you, Shawn, you see the same guys on the way up that you see on the way down. Make sure you treat everybody right. But like one thing in particular, just kind of let you in kind of on who he is as a person. We were wrestling in Evansville, Indiana one night, and I was the baby face. He was the heel. And we were doing something, and he was like, we're going to build a comeback. And so I was just listening, and he had me fire up on him a little bit, and he was like, I'm going to can you to the outside. And I was like, okay. He's like, when you come back in, start your comeback. Wait till 9. Gotcha. So I start to come back, blah, blah, blah. And he goes to shoot me out, and like he has my hair, and he goes to throw me out, and I go through the ropes. Not thinking it's a big deal, right? As I hit, he still has my hair. And I hear like some of it rip out of my head, and I'm like, Jesus, and I'm like, ow, man. And he like pulls me back through the ropes, and then he's like, I said, go out of the ring over the top. And then we just do something else and we change it. So when we get in the back, he's like, Shawn, listen, when you next time we work, we're doing the same thing. I was like, okay. So we worked a couple weeks later. I think we're maybe in Kentucky. Bop, 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 same thing. He said, go out. And this time he throws me and I go over the top and I hit. And then I wait till 9 and I get back in. And when I get back in, his back's turned to me. And he told me to start the comeback. So his back's turned to me. And about when I'm like 2 steps away from him, he turns around, sees me, throws a punch, I block it, boom. And the people just, because like I almost didn't make it in. I took this big bump over the top rope and we got in the back and he was just like, Shawn, see, it's the little things. If you would have went out of the ring and you hit your feet and you did a little roll and then you waited till 9 to get back in, they don't care. Why are you laying there for so long? Why don't you just get back up, kick my ass, And he was just, it was those little things in wrestling wise that he taught that just meant so much. Facial expressions when you're getting whipped off, instead of just being stone faced and getting shot to the ropes. He was like, Shawn, a guy my size grabs a guy your size and goes shoot you off. Wouldn't you be a little freaked out? Like, yeah. He goes, well, look like it, act like it. He's like, if it hurts, make it look like it hurts. It was just those little things that but he got those little things in life too. And so you would see him all the time. I got to do a couple bigger shows with him. They had catering and whatnot. And if he passed a table where there was somebody sitting alone, he stopped and sat with him. There's just those little things. Because then that guy left, man. He knew, like, he didn't feel alone. You know what I mean? When he got there, he felt alone. He's sitting at a table eating. He feels alone. Tracy goes and makes him feel part of the boys, and it's just those little things in wrestling and those little things in life is what Tracy just had down, man. And he did it relentlessly for everybody, whether you treated him with the same respect or not. And I'm not, Tracy, like he'll beat you up too, but like he did those things just so often that it was just like people took it for granted so many times, and like, man, I just, one of my biggest things, I wish he would have got his flowers before he left, because he was just the best guy. And I love that Punk and those guys on TV still have those little shout outs, that little, ain't it great to be alive on a Monday night? That's Smothers. That's why Punk does that, is that Smothers. And like anytime I'd wrestle one of his other kids, me and Chase Stevens or me and Chris Michaels or me and Shane Matthews, we'd do dueling Smothers, whoever was the babyface. Ain't it great to be alive in whatever town, whatever night it was. And then the heel would be like, I swear to God, if I hear anybody say Chase Stevens sucks, I'll slap each and every one of you. We just doing it always worked. Everything he did worked, always.
I'd imagine, his death, hit so many people hard, because he was really just such an incredible connection to a lot of people that were just getting started in the business.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and that's what he loved. He loved to see the next generation, and going back to that too, it's one of those things. His era, so many of those guys were holding on, and they didn't want the guy, and he was against that. He wasn't that way. He loved the business so much, he wanted to see it continue even after he was gone, and he knew it would. So he wanted to have his hand in it.
Yeah. Did you also get a chance to work with Dr. Tom Prichard as well?
Man, Tom's the best too. Like Tom changed my life. I got to know him pretty well. There's a show in Knoxville called UWA that a guy named Danny grew up was running, and Danny and a guy named Andy had the concessions in this flea market, and then he helped Danny get the flea market building. And I remember when we first started working there, there was like 20 or 30 people coming on Thursday nights, And then I had went and did Deep South for WWE, and then came back, and Dr. Tom was there in a mask. And he was sitting in the locker room in a mask, and I remember asking somebody, I was like, "Who's this brother?" And they're like, "This is Dr. Tom." I was like, "Prichard?" And they're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh my God, man, how cool!" So I went up to Danny and was like, "How'd you get Dr. Tom here?" But so I went out and did a couple things, and me and Tom kind of hit it off, and we got to do like some fans bring the weapons matches, but like after that, saying Tom changed my life, I was trying really hard. I've been working for a while. I was trying really hard to get in TNA, and Bruce Prichard had just got there, Tom's brother. And I had heard, some rumors that they didn't really get along at the time and that kind of stuff. But I was like, hey, it's worth a shot. So I called Tom. I was like, hey, can I stop by and see you? I want to have a conversation with you. I feel like I got this like glass ceiling that I just can't break through, and I would love some advice. And he was like, yeah, of course, come by. And so I went by and I talked to him, and I was like, how can I get in touch with Bruce? And he was like, hold on. Do you want to get in touch with Bruce, or do you want to learn how to get past your glass ceiling? I was like, I feel like they're one and the same. And he was like, they're not. Bruce has nothing to do with the glass ceiling that you put above yourself. And he was like, do me a favor, read this book. And so he gave me this book, and it was The Secret. And he's like, read this book. Now, he's like, I want you to read this book, but I also want you to read the Bible. And at that time, I wasn't a follower of Jesus. Even though I grew up, my dad was a preacher, both my grandfathers preachers, but I rebelled. Uh, but he's like, I want you to read the Bible too. And I was like, I'll start with this book. So I read that book, and I just remember at that time, man, like even though it was several years later when I found Jesus, it was that thought process that kind of allowed my mind to open up. And not only did he do that, man, he checked on me constantly. And just every time I get to see him, like he's just so gracious. And he's just, I stopped by the NWA last time they were in Knoxville, and he was there. And just, I went there to talk to Pat Kinney and a few other guys about maybe doing something with him. But I spent my whole time sitting and catering with Tom, just catching up and just being like, man, this dude is the best. And he's another guy that you can go talk to 500 dudes, man. They all had the same story. Like he took time out and just made them feel special. And the way he teaches, Tom's got a gift. The way he teaches resonates with so many people because he doesn't make it seem, well, one thing he does that's really great is that there's not one way. There's not just one way with Dr. Tom. He knows it's ice cream. There's a million different flavors, and everybody likes a different flavor. But he just he makes it real. He makes it a real conversation when he's teaching. It's not this is what you do and this is how you do it. It's what would you do? He makes you think. So you actually learn it versus just doing, steps A, B, and C and D, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the fortune of talking with him on the show in the past, and he was talking about his processes with training the talent that have gone on to do big things with the WWE or TNA or AEW. So he is definitely shown another person that's shown a lot of passion for the industry. Um, Now you make your debut in 2000.
Yes.
Talk to me about your first match. Were you nervous? Were you scared? Were you shy? What was going through
Well,
your
yeah,
head?
like I said, I went there. I didn't even know it was going to happen. He told me I was just going to go watch, and learn what not to do. And then, I learned what not to do. And most of everything I did in that match is what not to do, you know. But, again, it was with a guy that I had trained with a little while. So I wasn't that nervous, which I knew it was him, but it was just like I was young, man. I was 17 and just like being out there in front of people without a shirt on and all those things, for this insecure kid. It was just like this. And I remember it cut me so deep. This guy screamed out, "Get a tan." And I was just like, oh, it just cut me so deep at that time, But it was one of those things that's like, okay, the presentation's pretty important too. I got to get on that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool. It was a great learning situation. I can't tell you it was a great match because it wasn't. It was terrible, but I learned a lot for sure.
Now, over the course of your career, we've talked about Tracy Smothers and Tom Prichard, but you've gotten to share the ring with so many different people over the course of your career. Who have been some of your favorite opponents that you've gotten to compete against and step in the ring with over the years?
Man, gosh, that's a loaded list. Jerry Lynn for sure. Learned so much from Jerry. Became friends with Jerry. Lived with Jerry for a while because he was so gracious. Him and his wife Pam, so gracious to allow me and my daughter Maddie into their home for an extended amount of time, which is so great. Jerry was great. Joey Matthews was one of the smoothest guys I ever got to work with, and we worked at the fairgrounds in Nashville. So you had like fave locker rooms. So I was over in the babyface locker room. He was over in the Hill locker room. You didn't even, I had to like walk around the building, to talk to him and all that. And of course, he was like, "Get out of here, kid," But man, he was so great. He was so good. Christian York, again, Joey's old partner. I got to work with him. I think it was 2015. And I was in the best shape of my life, and I was in really great shape. I was working with Chase Owens a lot, who would probably Chase Owens, if I were to do a match right now and somebody was saying, "Hey, you better have the best match or your life depends on it," I would probably choose Chase. We just clicked. We just had something special together, I feel. I hope he feels the same way. But I was working with him regularly and several other guys that were in tremendous shape. Christian York blew me up, man. I was dying.
Really?
He was so good. Sigmund is Shane Andrews. Man, there's just so many guys. But Ethan Page made the last year of my career just a blast. Like, man, that guy, he doesn't get the flowers he gets. Like, if you talk to anybody that's wrestled Ethan Page, they're gonna put him on a different level than anybody that's just watched Ethan Page from afar because he's just. Smothers would always say this guy's a night off as a compliment. Ethan Page is a night off. Like he's so good, just so good. And there's a
Yeah.
million that I can probably name too, but those are a few that are just so talented.
And you got to be on big time television, making appearances for WWE and TNA. What was it like being a part of that experience? Because when you're on TV, I mean, it's a whole nother level.
Yeah, for sure. Like my favorite thing about doing anything for Raw or SmackDown, anything like that, was anytime like John Cena or The Rock or one of those guys were there, I would go over like they'd have a little curtain area to the side that you could kind of shimmy your way through all the cables and all that kind of stuff. I would go there. It would be to either right or left side of the ramp, and I would go there for when those guys would make the entrance. Man, like if you haven't felt 20,000 people just losing their minds and all the energy coming one direction. Like there is no adrenaline rush in the world. There's no drug in the world that gives you that same feeling as that. And The Rock and Cena always got the biggest reactions, of course. I got to do a match on SmackDown with Jason James. Jackson James, a lot of fame in North Carolina area. Really great wrestler, great guy too, great dude. But Rudy Charles, Stan Engler, is one of my closest friends and has been for a very long time. And he got to be the ref. And I got to walk down the ramp with him right beside me because, we were commercial break entrance buddies. And so I got to walk down the ramp with Rudy beside me. And it was one of those moments in life. It was in the Phillips Arena in Atlanta, which I live like an hour from now. And we just looked around and I was like, man, full circle, brother. And he was like, "We're here, buddy." And I was like, "Man, just one him being there, was just so cool." Dexter Loomis is another one, guys. Sam is just one of my favorite guys to work with. I love him so deeply. So happy that he's getting some of the time on TV he's getting right now. We just had that conversation the other day, but Rudy being in there with us is just always like the height of all of it. TNA was awesome. Bob Ryder was a lot of that. Jason James was a lot of that. Jimmy J, um, who did all the merchandise stuff for a long time. Tony Lucchesio, who is now Danny Deals, was a lot of that too. They got me there quite a bit. Me and John Schuyler got to open one of the pay-per-views in 2015, I think. Bound for Glory in North Carolina. Kurt Angle and Eric Young was the main event, and I stole one of the cards on and the door in the locker room. I'm taking that, man. It was my name right there, and Kurt Angle's on the top. I asked first, but that was cool. And just TNA was always a blast. TNA was always so cool. Everybody was so cool in that locker room, and that was around the time that they got a lot of not great compliments from the fans. But I tell you, man, like I don't know if I've been in locker rooms that were so welcoming. Like everybody was really cool. You hear different stories about different guys, but I had in those times I had great conversations with Bubba Ray, and everybody was cool. Everybody was just happy to be there and working hard, and it just seemed like a team environment. It was really great.
It's always good when you're rubbing shoulders with people in the industry and you're networking, you're talking to them, you're picking their brain about what to do here, and you learn from them and you're growing and to see your friends and colleagues that are now making it onto the big stages, it's incredible. It really is. And you were part of their development. You were there for their early beginnings in the industry. So it's amazing.
Yeah, man, it's a blessing. I look back now, it's just like I wish so bad, Stanley, that like at that time I didn't realize that Jesus was walking with me until after I had quit wrestling. And I look back so many times now, and so many things he's shown me and gave me the nudge. It's like, I mean, he was there, during that. But I did so many of those things, man, and I would go home lonely. and I would go home unfulfilled, and I would go home, just down about and I just got to do these incredible things, and it's like I've got this new lease on so many of those things now. I look back on them with so much more good feelings and so much more gratitude for those moments than I had at the moment. You know what I mean? I look back now and go, like I got to be around Billy Corgan, and I remember I was in the back at TNA one day, and Billy was back there, and gosh, I'm trying to remember who it was. But one of the guys was walking by, and he was like humming "Despite All My Rage, I'm Still Just a Rat in a Cage," and he's humming it as he's walking past Billy Corgan, and Billy stops, and he starts doing it too. And I just remember thinking, what life is this? This is crazy. So just so many moments like that. Like I'm just so blessed by it. And I look back on it now and can feel that blessing. And anytime I get to talk to anybody in wrestling, like I try my best to talk to them in a way to see like if they have allowed themselves to know that Jesus is with them. Because man, none of it really matters unless you're walking with him. I look back now more, you know, with Jesus with me, and it just makes me appreciate so much more, man. I just try to tell guys that all the time. I've done a couple seminars, and Tyler Sutton and a couple other guys have done a really cool thing. They named a little tournament after me. And the premise behind it is guys that are 3 years in the business or younger. So I get a chance to talk to some of those guys too, and I try my best to just keep their heads level, man, because like it's one of those industries that is so easy to get frustrated, and it's so easy to fall off the rails a little bit. Because the stress in it, man, there's so much stress. If you're really trying to do it, and especially if you're like working a regular job, or you're in a relationship, or maybe you have children, it's so easy to get so wrapped up, and you get your head kind of gets in the clouds, and also it's really easy to get frustrated, and it just you know it makes your mind and attention go to a place that isn't the place that you should be. And I just learned so much that if you wake up and you focus on him, you don't have you can't allow yourself to get so convoluted and all these things that the world sends your way, especially now, man. We constantly have these things, and we're constantly looking at everybody else's life and what they're doing, and where they are and how much money they got and how much fun they're having and all those things, and it just as soon as you allow envy and as soon as you allow hate into your mind, it starts to kind of take over the heart a little bit, and that's when the enemy jumps in and just takes advantage. And it's so easy to get wrapped up in that stuff in this industry because there's a million guys out there doing it, and there's 15 guys getting shot, and there's one guy actually getting a job. And it makes you so angry and competitive and all those things. And then I hope that the little bit of people that know who I am have me in the back of their head a little bit when they start to get in those situations and go, hey man, maybe he didn't make $1 million in this business, and maybe he didn't get where he wanted to go, but God, man, I come home to the most beautiful wife that you could ever imagine, and kids that think I'm somebody, and I'm able to impact them. And that's what's really special, because then I can help them share Jesus's love too. And without each other, man, like, you know, we could be lost in this world, especially in this world of wrestling that's just so, it's funny in a fake sport that you can't beat it. You're not really trying to beat each other. It's one of the most competitive things out there. We're not actually trying to pin each other, but man, it gets so competitive, and it's just easy to get wrapped up.
You want to be grateful for what you have, count your blessings, and be grateful for
Yeah.
what you have. And I want to talk about some of the stuff you've done outside of wrestling. I know you're very involved and volunteered at your church and have helped others over the years. What kinds of things have you done to help out in your community?
Well, We do have a lot of kids, so I don't get to do as much as I want in the community. But like we always try around the holidays to get the kids and my wife and I involved. And like, if nothing else, we take some Thanksgiving dinners around to some areas that maybe they don't have that privilege, and we try our best to like, when the kids get a little older and the things that they don't like as much, and things they don't use as much, that we try to donate to not just Goodwill and those kind of places, but some people that are going to utilize it, on a regular basis, and maybe they just don't have that opportunity to go to the store and grab it real fast, because we're just so blessed that we are able to do that. And a lot of it is my wife. She's a registered nurse, and we actually just did the ribbon cutting of her business today.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. She opened up Medstetics of Canton. She does permanent cosmetics, and like makeup tattooing. um, and she's a registered nurse, like I said. She wanted to start doing that. Her mom passed from cancer a couple years ago, 2 years after Smothers passed from lymphoma. And she one of the things that really resonated with her was her mom's drop in her confidence, when she was going through the treatments and those kind of things, and so she was like, how can I use my education and my gifts to kind of give back to people that are maybe going through that, because that's a really traumatic experience. And so she started looking at the 3D areola replacements, because a lot of time women, they lose their breast during these situations, and some of them will go and now get, implants to get their femininity back, but they still sometimes don't have a nipple and those kind of things, And could you imagine how you would feel as a female? You know what I mean? Like, so she was looking into that. So she is perfecting her craft and doing that. So that's one thing that she, as a business, we wanted to do. Like, hey, how can we do this and also sustain our lifestyle with our children? So we started looking at things like that, and it's just so we do as much as we can. Love to do more. And we're always looking at opportunities anytime I run a wrestling event, because man, it's you know I got to get my fix. So anytime I do that, I try my best to donate to something. For the Smothers Invitational that we did a couple years ago, we teamed up with Livestrong, and we donated a little bit there. And I did a New Generation Wrestling out of Tennessee, and myself, we teamed up to do Win in Rome a few years ago in Rome, Georgia, at the Riverwalk Stadium there, arena, not stadium. And So we donated a little bit to some local places there, and just anytime I have the opportunity, I try my best to just, throw a little bit of love out. And I feel like, especially with the Smothers thing, that's what he would want to give a platform for all the boys and ladies in the business, but he'd also want to give if he could, So I always try my best to do that.
Yeah, it really is fascinating, to be able to pay that forward, that legacy continuing to grow. And you just never know what people are going through. A lot of people are struggling out there,
And a smile, right, man? I'm glad you said that, Sam. Like a smile, right? Like I went through so much of my life with a frown on my face, and acted like I had to be a tough guy to get the next step. But man, sometimes a smile, you just pass somebody in a smile just changes it, doesn't it? Like, and I'm glad
Exactly.
you said it. I think that's the first step, for people wondering how they can help. Smile, smile, and hey, how you doing? Because
E-
every once in a while you'll get somebody to tell you, and just that conversation will just go so far.
Exactly. Now, was there like a cause that you were involved with or something that you participated in that was very heartwarming and something that was very moving, I guess I should say?
I guess I guess the biggest thing that comes to mind was Danny Grubb that was running that UWA, Andy that had the concessions. Um, we're doing that every Thursday, and there was a girl in a wheelchair there named Amanda. Come to find out later, she was Andy's granddaughter, and she had a friend named Amanda as well. So it was the Amandas. Amanda was in the wheelchair, the wheelchair Amanda. My friend Menace, I don't know if you're familiar, but Menace from the south side of Tokyo / Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Uh, he one of just the most beautiful people inside. He really is, and I hope his legacy lives on to that because he's just good. He's my mom's favorite wrestler too. But he would always walk past Amanda and call her Hot Wheels. So I remember one day I walked past her after I heard him say that, and I was like, "What's up, Hot Wheels?" And she was like, "Hey, I get so mad at you." So I was a heel, you know. And she's like, "You're such a jerk out there." And I was like, "Well, you're such a jerk right here." And we started joking around, you know. And then a couple weeks later, I needed somebody to watch my merchandise table, so I just walked over. I was like, "Hey, Hot Wheels, you want to watch my shirts and stuff today?" And she was like, "Yeah, of course." So we became like really close friends at that point, and we ended up going to Dollywood together. She took myself and my daughter to Dollywood, her and Andy, her grandfather, and then she was a Special Olympics and she did golfing in the Special Olympics. And I was living in Nashville at the time, and the newspaper came and actually did a story on her in the Special Olympics and me being there, being a wrestler and being her friend and all those things. And she ended up passing away a few years later. And I remember I went to her funeral, and when I walked into her funeral, the funeral home was covered in pictures of me and her. And I remember Andy coming up to me and was like, "Man, you made her feel cool." It was the verbiage he used. He said that she had told him that that was the first time she felt cool, and he showed me this notebook that she had wrote Amanda Schultz on it a couple times, because the people that she was in school with said that I was her boyfriend, and she did that to mess with them, you know. But that was like one of those moments. It's like, man, if it all ended right now, I did what Shawn Michaels and Mr. Perfect did for me when I was that overweight, quiet kid that didn't have any friends and didn't have anywhere to go. At least I got to do that for her, and that's what comes to mind. Anytime anybody says you ever feel like you did anything, that's what I did. That's all I did. That was enough.
Yeah, I mean, kindness really goes a long way. And when you're there for somebody that's going through something and you're helping them through something, it means so much. And what is it about giving back to you that gives you the most joy?
Man, it's just like, how do you feel when somebody gives something to you? Like, especially if it's somebody you don't expect it from. It's just like one of those, wow, why you thought of me? At least that's how I feel. Somebody does something for me, and especially when I don't expect it, and even when I do expect it, but especially when you don't, it's just like, oh man, like why? Then like it makes you motivated, right, to go do something for somebody else. And I think that goes back to Pops, man. It goes back to Smothers. He was just like, grab the guy behind you and take him with you. And then hopefully that guy will grab the guy behind him, take him with you. And hopefully that guy will grab the guy behind him and take him with him. And if everybody's doing that, man, nobody gets left behind, and that was just, and my dad and mom set that standard. And then Smothers really like just knocked it home, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you got to pay it forward one step at a time, you know. Um,
And man, I'm so proud of my wife does that. My wife does that regularly. Like I see her do things regularly for people, and I'm just like, and it motivates me. And it goes back to that grabbing the guy, take him with you, because I see her do it, then I'll go do it. And then one of our kids will do it, and it's just, then hopefully whoever we did it for does it for somebody else. And it's, just the
I,
best.
yeah, keeps on going, keeps on
Yes.
going. Shawn, this has been wonderful getting the chance to speak with you. I want to say thank you for coming on to Wrestling with Heart. It means a lot to me and
Of
to my
course, man. Yeah.
listeners,
Thank you.
viewers that are watching this on YouTube.
I
Where can
love
people
this take on the business, man. It's really cool. I think that's really cool, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Good luck out there, man. I think it's really great. I hope you land some huge stars and get you a lot of notice for doing it this way, because I think it's really awesome.
I appreciate that. I really do. Before we go, where can people find more about you on social media, or if you have anything you want to promote or plug, feel free.
Yeah, well, right now, med status in Canton. If you're in the metro Atlanta area and you want to get some permanent cosmetics, maybe get some lip blushing or your eyebrows done or something like that, please hit us up. You can find us on the internet, medstatuscanton.com, Facebook, Instagram, all those things. Myself personally, just under my shoot name, Tommy Phillips now. I do have some projects I'm working on slowly. I'm in college right now, so things are going kind of slow. But I am working on some stuff. Keep your eyes open for a young man named Hakeem Young out of the Atlanta area. That guy's got something really special. Trying my best to help him a little bit, and maybe we'll see him out a little bit here. But hopefully, I'll pop up somewhere, and it'll probably be a surprise.
All right. There you go. Thanks again, Shawn, and you're more than welcome to come back.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Stanley. Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, take care.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.